best freaking win of the season. Let's talk about it. And well, welcome back to New York Sports WickerMedia. I'm Watu-K99. Thank you as always for taking the time to watch these videos. If you enjoy what you're watching and you're brand new, please like and subscribe. If you're returning, welcome back. I appreciate all the support. Well, the New York Mets needed a win like that. This was far and away the best win of the season considering the opponent and the circumstances. No doubt about it. They defeat the Tampa Bay Rays tonight by a final score of 8-7 in 10 innings. And I'll tell you what, the kids are going to get all the attention. The big home runs, that's what's going to get the attention. But I want to give a whole lot of props to a guy we talked about before the Mets even signed him. I've even got the jersey on, number 34. Well, you can't see the name on the back of the jersey, but let's just assume it just says Senga on the back of this number 34 jersey. But Kodaisenga was phenomenal as the Mets starting pitcher. Fantastic. 6 innings, 3 hits allowed, only 1 run, 3 walks, and 12 strikeouts, generating swing and miss after swing and miss to one of the smartest hitting teams in baseball. Man, I was really happy with what I saw from him, and I think things are only going to get better going forward for number 34. I'm really thankful that Senga is a part of this rotation, and I think he's only scratched the surface. But let's talk about what we really want. Let's recap this game, because things have been absolutely horrific. The Mets have not won a series since they were playing the Dodgers. And that has been weeks now. It has been a long time since the Mets have won a series. And they've been playing a lot of, very lower echelon teams, shall we say, since then. So after having bad series against Cincinnati, Detroit, Washington, it goes on. Facing the best team at home, you could sense the crowd. The Mets fan base is absolutely ticked off, and understandably so. But for me personally, I didn't feel that I was going to pile on. I just get sick of posts saying that Epler has to be fired, Buck has to be fired, cut this guy, trade this guy. Everybody wants to be general manager on social media. And the simple fact of the matter is, I don't believe that this team is this bad, that they're going to be this level of bad for the next 4 months. I simply refuse to believe it. All you have to do, we've seen it time after time. In Major League Baseball, nowadays, all you've got to do is get in the playoffs. It doesn't really matter if you win the division or not. Ask the Atlanta Braves last year. Ask the Los Angeles Dodgers of last year. They'll tell you how far that got them. They're hanging one consolation banner in their stadiums. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting into the playoffs healthy and getting hot at the right time. And you know what? The fact is, right now, the New York Mets, they're 4 games out of the first wild card spot, which is currently held by, of all teams, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Whoever saw that coming. But they're the first team behind the wild card standings right now. They're a game and a half behind Miami. They're 21-23. It's amazing to me that some people have talked about this team being buried, being finished, and we're only halfway through the month of May. The season is a quarter of the way over. Haven't we learned over the years as baseball fans? This is not football where every single game feels like life and death. Baseball is a marathon. It's a cycle. It keeps changing. It's storylines that go on and on and on. Now, the last month or so has been absolutely brutal, no doubt about it. And, I definitely felt like if the Mets were going to do something, it was going to happen quickly. If they were going to turn this thing around, it was going to be with something very, very notable. And this game very well just may be that. But it sure didn't start that way. Actually, I felt pretty good at the beginning of the game because the Rays didn't score in the first inning. And how bad have the Mets been in first innings this year? I mean, it has been scary how bad it's been. But it got off to a pretty bad start. In the bottom of the first inning, Pete Alonso comes up with Francisco Lindor on first and Eduardo Escobar on third, and Alonso bounces into a double play. So right there, you're starting to feel a little bit queasy. Now, I would skip ahead a little bit, but I want to mention what happened in the bottom of the sixth. Now, I have been a huge defender of Buck Showalter. I think he is as smart a manager as there is in the game. But I don't understand what he was doing in this particular spot. So at this point, the Mets are trailing 1-0. I know that feels like about 6-0 nowadays, but it's only 1-0. So at this point, Francisco Lindor gets a single, and Pete Alonso's ground out moves him over to second base with 2 outs. So at this point, the Rays have a reliever in there, Kevin Kelly, a right-hander who's been struggling. Now, the hitter behind Alonso is Tommy Pham, who's a right-handed hitter. He can hit the ball okay, but he's really a specialist against lefties. That's really his role. So Buck Showalter, now that there's a righty pitching, he takes Pham out and puts in who? No, not Brett Beatty, who was on the bench. No. He puts in Danielvogelbach, the same player who I said earlier on today. I made a short video earlier today about Mark Vientos being called up. The player who I wanted gone was not Luis Guillorme. It was not Mark Hanna. It was not even Tommy Pham. It was Danielvogelbach. And once again, you saw a prime example why this guy just does not fit on this team. He doesn't. So the Rays do the absolute right thing. They take Kelly out of the game and put in a lefty because Vogelbach is about as adept at hitting lefties as, Stevie Wonder would be at this point. And what does it take? 4 pitches, and Vogelbach strikes out, and even to pour a little bit of salt in the wound, it's a called third strike. He didn't even swing the bat. Vogelbach went up looking to draw a walk, as he always does, and it just doesn't make sense. So then we move on to the 7th inning, and Josesiri. And how much can't you stand Josesiri? You talk about hot dog with a lot of spicy brown mustard on it. Oh my gosh. His trots when he hits a home run. I mean, I'm getting tired of this guy. 6 home runs, 2 of them in this series. It's a 2-0 lead. And I got to say this. As good as Senga was, I am really disappointed in the bullpen. The Rays scored at least 1 run in every inning for the rest of the game. So as happy as you can be about this game, this was a bad night for the Mets bullpen. All right, so it's 2-0 Tampa Bay going into the bottom of the 7th. And Ryan Thompson comes in to replace Jake Diekman, the lefty. Marte starts off with a strikeout, and then Mark Hanna does what, he may be best remembered for as a Met. He gets hit by a pitch. But hey, he got on base, and all of a sudden I started to have a little bit of a 2022 feel going on when Hanna got hit. And up comes Mark Vientos, and on an 0-1 count, a slider gets thrown, and Vientos hits a long fly ball. And hey, let's give Gary Cohen some credit for the reverse jinx. Saying that the ball had a good chance to stay in the yard. Well, that ball kept carrying. It kept carrying just over the left center field wall, and it was a tie game. And I got to tell you, at that moment, I started to feel like, okay, this could be a shot in the arm that the Mets need. There's a long way to go in this game. But man, oh man, for Vientos to hit a home run in his first game of the season when the fans have been screaming for this guy to come up, man, what a good feeling that is. So it's a 2-2 game at this point, and we go on to the 8th inning, and it's adamottavino pitching. And the thing with Ottavino is when he's good, he can be pretty dominant, but when he's bad, it just does not look good. And he immediately starts off by walking Randy Arozarena. And is there anything more frustrating after your team ties a game of baseball to walk the first hitter in the next inning? It just doesn't get more frustrating. Well, Arozarena steals second base, and Brandonlowe drills a home run to right field. It's now a 4-2 Tampa Bay advantage. But I will say this, to Ottavino's, to a little bit of his credit, taylorwalls singled, Luke Raley was hit by a pitch. That put first and second on with 1 out. Ottavino comes back to strike out Francisco Mejia, and then Raley and Walls pull off a double steal. They're on second and third with 2 outs. And the Rays have a 4-2 lead. And then it's Josesiri coming up. If Siri gets a base hit, makes this a 6-2 game, forget about it. It's over. Well, Ottavino gets him looking for a huge strikeout to keep the Mets in the game. Bottom of the 8th, somebody named Colin Poche, whatever his name is. I thought he was like a right winger for the Canadians or something. I don't know. But he strikes out McNeil, strikes out Lindor, and gets Pete Alonso to pop out in foul territory. So he just rolls right through the 2, 3, and 4 in the lineup. Very deflating feeling. So we reach the top of the ninth, and Buck Showalter, with his team trailing by 2, brings in stephennogosek to pitch, who's typically the team's long man, but he brings him in to try to keep Tampa Bay at bay. Pun very deliberately intended. Well, Joshlowe starts with a double to right field to Starling Marte. Wander Franco grounds out, moving Lowe over to third. And then Randy Arozarena hits a ground ball single into the drawn-in infield. Lindor just didn't have a chance to play it, and all of a sudden it's 5-2. Brandonlowe walks, and then they get a force out on Isaac Paredes. And so at this point, you've got first and third with the Rays up 5-2. It felt like window dressing at this point, but Nogosek did come back to strike out Taylorwalls. So even though the Mets relievers did give up runs, they did come back and get some big outs in spots when they really, really had to. So even though I was a little bit tough on the bullpen earlier, I will give them credit for at least limiting the damage, which could have been a lot worse. So it's on to the bottom of the ninth, and Jason Adam comes into the game, which to me was a little interesting. I expected Pete Fairbanks to come in, who's usually the Rays closer, but it's Jason Adam. And it starts off with a Danielvogelbach at bat. And the best you could really hope for is a walk, and that's exactly what happened. And then he hits Starling Marte, and all of a sudden, it gets very, very interesting. And then Buck Showalter decides to pinch hit Brett Beatty for Mark Canha. So at this point, you've got the first 2 on base, and then you've got the 3 kids coming up, Beatty, Vientos, and Alvarez. What a moment. Well, Beatty doesn't get it off to a very good start, strikes out swinging. Vientos hits the ball on the screws into center field very hard, but Siri makes the catch. It's 2 outs, and up comes Francisco Alvarez, the Mets' last chance. And on a 1-0 count, Adam pitches a slider that hangs right up there, and whew, God knows, I think even Luis Guillorme would have knocked that one out of the park. He knocks it off the second deck, Alvarez does, and he does one of the most epic bat flips I've ever seen in a regular season game. You know, he got some height on that jump. I had to make that the thumbnail picture. But it's a tie game, 5-5, and even at that moment, as crazy as this might sound, I said, you know what? Even if the Mets don't win, there's something about the team right now, that feels different because of these home runs by Vientos and Alvarez. This feels different, and it feels different right now. Of course, I wanted the win, but I wasn't necessarily looking for a win. I was looking for the feel of the team to change. I wanted the vibe in Citi Field to be exciting again. That's what I was looking for, and that's what that home run did. And that's why I was jumping around like crazy when Alvarez hit the home run. All right, so then Nimmo strikes out. And then we go into extra innings with that ridiculous rule where the runner starts on second base. And into the game comes David Robertson. Definitely the Mets' best reliever all year. You could say the best pitcher the Mets have had all season. So taylorwalls starts at second base. He immediately steals third base. Now Robertson induces a pop-up for the first out. And up comes Harold Ramirez, pinch hitter for the catcher Francisco Mejia. And the infield's drawn in again, and Ramirez is able to get a ground ball past Lindor into center field. Wall scores, and it's a 6-5 Tampa Bay lead. I gotta say, I wasn't too worried at this point. I expected Tampa Bay to get 1 run in. I just didn't want 2. I just had a bad feeling if they got to 2 runs, this was going to be a tough one. Well, Siri grounds out, moving Ramirez over to second with 2 outs. And up comes Joshlowe. Man, he's had some big hits, man. So he gets a single to right field to Marte. Marte fields it on 1 hop, fires the ball into home plate. Too late to get Ramirez. But Alvarez immediately fires the ball to second base. Lowe is hung up. They get him in a rundown. They tag him out. And we go to the bottom of the 10th, and it's a 7-5 Tampa Bay lead. So at this point, now Fairbanks comes into the game. I thought it was very interesting to bring him in at this point in the game, but that's what they did. And you have brandonnimmo starting on second base, which if you're going to have any player on the Mets starting an inning on second base, Nimmo is a pretty good choice. And jeffmcneil gets a quick single on over to right field, and Nimmo holds up at third. So now the winning run is up at the plate. And I thought to myself, okay, first and third, winning run at plate. The next 3 batters here are Franciscolindor, Pete Alonso, and Danielvogelbach. And I'm thinking to myself, The Mets better do this in the next two batters because I got no confidence at all that Vogelbach is even going to get the ball out of the infield. I just had no confidence whatsoever. And Lindor had a very, very disappointing at bat. He strikes out. Up comes Pete Alonso. And on another 0-1 count, it was something about the Mets an 0-1 count. I think all three of their home runs tonight were on 0-1 counts. It was definitely all three home runs were on the second pitch of their respective at-bats. Very interesting. So the catcher calls for a fastball up. Kind of like up right in the center of the plate, but right at the top, basically on level of the letters. And that's pretty much where the pitch went from Fairbanks. Pete was ready for it, turned it right around, deposited that ball into the second deck, and immediately, the way the ball just shot off the bat, you had to know that was going out. Boom, home run, 3-run dinger, and the Mets win their first walk-off game of the season. 8-7, defeating Tampa Bay. Like I said, only a game and a half out of a wild card spot. This is a long, long way from being over. But this was the absolute best win the Mets have had this year. Now, let's see what they do tomorrow. If they can take 2 out of 3 from Tampa Bay, that is going to be a tremendously positive vibe going forward. But again, to me, the player of the game is actually really Kodaisenga. To get 6 innings in, only 3 hits, and 12 strikeouts, he has consistently improved nearly every time he's been out there. He's getting the swings and misses. He's always going to be a little bit erratic. When your out pitch goes out of the strike zone, it's up to get these hitters to make them think it's a strike, and that's exactly what they were doing tonight. It was one ghost fork after another. It worked. So I got to tell you, as a Mets fan, this is the best I've felt in weeks. Every Mets fan should be feeling pretty good right now about this particular game. Now you got to build on it. But I'm telling you, this was the type of win that we saw, in 2022, even back in 2019 when the Mets had an exciting run and they're able to manufacture these come-from-behind wins. I mean, the Mets are not a team typically that goes out, even at their best, and beats teams in a submission. They have a way of being resilient, of coming back, of, manufacturing runs out of nowhere, and then, just absolutely taking it apart with a shot in the gap, with a blast over the wall. That's what happened, and to do it against Tampa Bay, the best team in baseball, what a good feeling it is. Well, those are my thoughts. I want to see yours. Do you think this game is going to be the turnaround that the New York Mets have sorely needed? Put your comments right down there. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'll see you right back here with more content from you know where. The Wicker Chair.